She's not what you'd expect. She's tough and feisty, but gentle and tender. She makes millions and gives millions to the poor. She cries, she laughs, she teaches, she comforts. This is the Dani Johnson Show.
Hi, I'm Dani Johnson. Welcome to the Dani Johnson Show. Thanks so much for joining us, by the way. Hey, we're back in our my office. Actually, it's kind of my prayer room. I know that sounds weird, doesn't it? But that's mostly what I do here. Anyway, so this is a continuation from last week on the day that we were giving you a really good solid business tip about being able to handle the challenges of working on a big project, especially when you have no experience in. And so if you did not see last week's episode on this, where I gave you one tip on that, today I'm giving you point number 2 and maybe number 3 if we have time. But nonetheless, welcome to my home and welcome to this nice little fun space that I love to be in, that I'm in every single morning, and honestly praying for you. All right, so managing a project that you have no experience in and the challenges, like handling the challenges that get created with it. And so I've got my journal here. These are just my own journal entry of some of the challenges that we've had. But number 1 last week that we talked about was managing your expectations, managing the expectations you have on other people and the expectations you have on yourself. You can set yourself up for failure if you are not managing your expectations right. But let's go into number 2. Communicate, 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 communicate. Oh, hello. We touched on this a little bit last week, and that is this, that when you're communicating with somebody, you have to understand that they are hearing and perceiving what you are saying, but they do not have the luxury of seeing what's in your mind. They don't have the luxury, nor the human, they don't have the ability, because they're human, they don't have the ability to really understand what it is that you are communicating. And this is why it's really, really important to, when you're working on a project, especially one that you don't have a lot of experience in, to make sure and have a high level of communication skills. This is how I was able to, when my husband was gone for the 10 days for the end of this house project that we've been working on, and he had kind of reached his fill of stress, he had reached his fill of like frustration, really, and mostly because of expectations and communication. And so he kind of was losing the grace, and he's a very gracious man, but he was losing the grace to be able to manage it. And it was like time for him to leave for 10 days to get off grid. He went on a camping trip, and then he'd asked me if I would help, and I had a blast. I absolutely had an absolute blast. It was so much fun. But what I had learned right away was to communicate. And so the very first thing that I did the very first day was I texted the builder a message. And the message had nothing to do with the list of tasks that needed to get done, because I definitely had a long list of tasks. I also had a goal that by the time Hans came back in 10 days, what would I want him to be able to see? What would we have liked to have accomplished while he was gone, so he can come home and go, come to the house. We were living in a camper at the time. He'd walk in and go, wow, a lot has happened since I was gone. That was my hope, and guess what? That did happen. So the first thing that I did, and this is important, that when you're working on a team, especially a large team, you have no experience, right? It's the who are you, right? Okay, you're the new person in the middle of the project. What's important? As I didn't start with tasks, I started with building relationships the first day. That was the first thing I did, was to build relationship. How? Well, first text that went out to Mike, our builder, was, Mike, first of all, I just have to tell you what an amazing job you and all of your teams are doing. I am so impressed with all the details, all the hard work that has happened, and how far we have come, even just in the last month alone. So I edified him. Point number 1 under communication. Communication without edification is just instruction. And instructions can be met with some insubordination sometimes. Instructions can be met with rebellion sometimes. Instructions could be met with, I don't really want to do that, or I don't think that's very important, or, does that really matter? Or this is just the way he wants it. It doesn't make sense that he wants it that way. Do you understand what I'm saying? So instructions, that if you want someone to buy in to what it is that you're trying to accomplish, you can't just lead with tasks and instructions. That's not communication. That's not the kind of communication I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is creating an environment where people want to work together, where people want to buy into the vision. Like, for example, the vision of, hey, Mike, it would be so amazing that when Hans comes back in 10 days after he's had a break from working on the project, that he is blown away at the progress in which he watched happen. Could you imagine how amazing that would be? And he's like, no, that's a really good idea. All right. Now, we had a deadline for the house, and I even had told Mike, man, Mike, imagine how amazing you're gonna feel if we're actually able to move in before the 1st of August. Like, think about that. Like, could you imagine being able to go, oh, thank God, it's like over? He's like, I'm with you, girl. That sounds like a great goal. I'm working on it, which is really awesome. So communicate. So number 1, edify. Edify. Start with building the person up and building the team up that you're working with. So when I came on the job site, the stonemasons were here and they were working on the fireplace and they were working on some outside work. And so again, I told you, day 1 was build a relationship. Okay, when you come into a project, build relationship. That's the most important thing to do. Not barking orders, not giving instructions, not giving the giant task list, but build relationship first. Now we can start to create some camaraderie. So I went to the stone guys right away and just told them, and again, we have a communication barrier because most of them speak Spanish, a couple of them speak English, and a couple of the others have very broken English. So I'm pretty sure I said some of the wrong words, definitely not in the context of when you're talking about stones, but Bella is beautiful, which I think means towards a person and a female. But I just kept telling them, I was going, oh, this is so gorgeous. You guys are so amazing. This is art. And instead of, again, hey, this needs to be fixed, that rock's in the wrong place, because that did happen, right? So when they started to build the fireplace, they kind of lost the rhythm of making it funky and weird and stuff sticking out and really like medieval looking, but they started to build a fireplace that was more like, all the other fireplaces that are in the Texas Hill Country, which is flat, geometric, not what my husband wanted. That's good for other people, wasn't good for what Hans wanted. So, the first day I obviously see things that are not going correctly, but that's not the first thing that I'm gonna point out. So I literally just went to each of them, put my hand on their shoulder and told them how amazing they were. Genuinely, like, oh, this is so gorgeous, this is beautiful. And I went and I had them follow me and I said, look at this. And I pointed out different particular walls that were they're just art. Like the walls inside this house are straight up art. And so I wanted them to feel like edified and lifted up and encouraged because of the hard work that they're doing. Largely, they never get to meet with the owner of the home. They do their thing and then that's it. So this was a good opportunity for me to just tell them how much I appreciate them and how impressed Hans is with all of their work and how diligent they are. They're always here on time. So again, look for ways to edify the people that are on your team. That's what I'm talking about with communication. So start with edification, start with encouragement, start with pointing out the things that people have done right, that they've done correct. And if you do it that way, then now you have at least a listening ear, someone that wants to understand, somebody that wants to get the project done, someone that wants to know what the vision is so that they can buy into that vision. Leave your tasks for after. Leave your list of things and of course the corrections that have to get done as well. So, which brings me to this under, again, this point of communicate. What do you do when you have to confront an issue or that something isn't quite being done right? In the case, for example, with the fireplace, right? And that needed to be done before Hans got home. That was one of the goals. And it being done right was the goal. And so how do you confront that issue? Well, if you do the first part that I just told you, right? And again, even if it might be wise for you to make a list of like 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 things about what the person's doing that's right and that's good and that is admirable, right? Then you sandwich it with, hey, is there any way I can show you something that I've seen that I think is really, really amazing? So I brought them outside to look at the stonework that was done and how it was gnarly and like stuff sticking out the way that Hans wanted it. And then I said, can you come over here with me? And we went into the fireplace. And I said, do you see the difference between this fireplace and this rock wall? And he says, oh yeah, it doesn't have like a, is there any way that you'd be willing to like make that happen? Because the fireplace, I mean, after we have experienced your beautiful artwork on the outside, we most certainly have got to experience it on the inside of the fireplace. I mean, because your artwork is all over the walls on the inside and the outside. We want it to connect. We want that fireplace to feel the same exact way that this wall feels, that this out rock wall feels. Is there any way you can do that? Like, oh yeah, absolutely. Versus them feeling condemned or that they were wrong, that they screwed it up, right? So number one, edify and encourage. Number two, when you have to confront an issue, bring them to see it. Show what's right. Then ask if there's a way to build a bridge to make it work in the other place. Versus, well, why did you do this? This is usually how people confront. Why did you do this? Why did you all of a sudden lose the artistic feel that's all over the house? Why do you have this flat fireplace? Why is this thing all like geometric lines? Why didn't you do it the same way you did everything else? That could have been a way to approach it, but that instantly, that why approach instantly puts somebody on the defense, and that doesn't help them. So lead them with what was good, ask them if there's a way to be able to make it happen, then lead that conversation with more edification. That's point number two on handling the challenges of a big, stressful project and how to reduce some of that stress. If you've enjoyed today's video, hey, freely you've received it, share it with somebody else, right? Don't keep it to yourself, don't be stingy. This actually could help save someone's job right now. It could definitely help somebody's stress decrease. So please go ahead and share that. The other thing I wanted to tell you is that if you want more videos like this, or even I've got a tool for you. If this is your very first time watching the Dani Johnson Show, we've got a tool. It's called First Steps to Wealth. I was a homeless woman 28 years ago, and I started a business from the trunk of my car in a payphone booth. Within 2 years, I had made my first million. Today, a multimillionaire who gives millions of dollars away. I don't take a salary from the business, and I don't touch the profits. All of that is taken care of the team that works so diligently to be able to produce the show, as well as everything else that we do. But I would like to give you the book. It's called First Steps to Wealth. Again, that's First Steps to Wealth. If you go to firststepstowealth.com, you can get your free copy. It's a $15 book that has been read by hundreds of thousands of people all over the world, is taught in universities all over the world, and the book is going to show you step by step how to be able to start from where you're at to be able to manage those projects better, projects of managing a family, the projects of running a business, or running a project at your job. Whatever the project is, you're going to learn step by step how to be able to do it with these very powerful communication skills that I only took one communication skill out of the book and talked about it to you today. If you want many strategies, you need those strategies. You need more tools to be able to succeed at work and at home. A hammer is very powerful, right? And a hammer is designed for a nail, but you can't use a hammer for everything. Okay, building this house, a hammer was used, but it wasn't the only tool that was used. And if you don't have the appropriate tools in your toolbox, you're not gonna be able to be effective when you go to cut wood and you've got a hammer. So First Steps to Wealth has a tremendous amount of tools in there that you are going to use, that thousands have used before you and are currently getting results. Many of them have become millionaires from the things that they've read in that book and have applied in that book. Again, that's firststepstowealth.com. Go there right now, get your free copy of the book. You pay the shipping and handling to get it to your house, and we will cover the cost of the book itself. Fair enough? I think that's totally fair enough. And please leave us a comment. We love to read the comments of how you've enjoyed today's show. And yeah, so again, if you are in over your head and you are managing a project and you feel like there's like a ton of people around you that are just not cooperating, if you just do what we talked about today, that can change it. And if you want the first tip, we shared it last week, get a hold of it, watch it, use that first tip and along with the second tip, and you're gonna dramatically reduce the amount of stress that you're having right now. You don't need to have the stress that you got right now. And if you realize that you're in control of the amount of stress you got, well then you're gonna actually change the way you're approaching these things. So anyway, God bless you. Thanks so much for joining us today. Have an awesome one, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.